On our main stage this morning, we have a real treat to speak about women navigating growth and success as leaders. I'd like to introduce Kati Quigley.
First part is good. I made it up the stairs without tripping. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm honored to be part of today's agenda. And to start it off, I hear there was a lot of pickleball and fun last night, so people are probably trickling in. I am here to talk about I'm here to talk about guiding principles. And it is something that is very special to me. It guides who I am throughout my career and what I do and how I make my choices. And I'm going to talk about mine uniquely, but hopefully it spurs some inspiration for you. So before I get into the guiding principles, I'm going to talk about how do we introduce ourselves? How do we tell people who we are? So I have a couple slides here that are real introduction slides that I have used and kind of talk about why they don't tell the whole story. So this first one, we all have used this, right? It's your name, it's your title, it's the company that you work for. This doesn't say very much at all. Some people might not know who Smartsheet is. Some people think, okay, I don't know what portfolio marketing is, but great, glad she's here. Her name is Kati. That's about it. This is more, for an internal presentation or an audience that you're used to knowing. The next one I actually have used. I worked at Microsoft, as you can see, for a very long time. And so this was my way of, when I went and interviewed for jobs within Microsoft, I'd say, here's what I've done. But looking at it, it actually doesn't help you. It makes you curious, like, wow, she was at Microsoft a long time. How old is she? There's a whole lot of things beforehand. I don't know what those are. Those are acronyms. I'm not sure what she did there. And why did she leave Microsoft? Why is she now at this company called Smartsheet? So it tells you a little bit more, but it leaves you with a lot of questions. And you wouldn't know from this slide that I spent 20 years in events. There's only one job that says events. You don't even know how long I was there. So that isn't super helpful. This one, okay, we're getting a little more personal now. This is fun. There's a bunch of pictures here. You can kind of make an assumption that I'm married, I have kids, which is true. There's a picture of a bunch of women. I'm a strong advocate for women in technology. I love to travel. I love to hike. You can see me in a trail run because I fell on my face. And then you would not know, but I'm with a customer in one of those. And I have a strong passion for serving customers. But this helps a little bit. So I think about my business, that's my job. I think about my life, what are the things that really matter to me? Part of why I'm up here, guiding others, having impact on people, helping them grow and develop. Add a little bit more to it. I have a friend, Chris Dyer. He told me a long time ago, you should actually take the words work-life balance and make it a balanced life works. This is something that's super important to me throughout life. And so these pictures demonstrate it. But you need me standing here telling you, what do these pictures mean? And what does that saying mean to me? So if you just saw this slide, you're like, okay, I see her in a bunch of different pictures, but I'm not really sure still what she does or who she is in the world. Last one, so I was super proud of this one, but it took me a long time to create, but wow, there's a lot of stuff there. You're not really sure, again. The thing that I love about this is the strength finders. My eyes go to that. When I went back to look at this, I probably made it 5 years ago. My eyes go to that strengths finder. So that tells me a little bit more, these words resonate with me. These are things that I truly feel that I am. This picture brings to life how I think I show up in the world. Optimistic, joyful, excited about things, laughing about something. I tend to find a lot of humor in myself and things that happen daily. And so this picture, I was actually telling a story about being stung by a bee while I fell on my face. This seems to be a theme here. But there's things here, but the capabilities, those are interesting, but how do you apply it? How do you connect them? They're actually not too connected. So helpful, again, but again, not really getting to the heart. It's not helping me actually get to the heart of who I am and tell the story of who I am in the world and how I'm going to show up and help others. And it's actually not going to help the person reading it as much. There's a lot to decipher from it. So I had the opportunity about 10 years ago. I worked in the partner channel at Microsoft, and I loved it. And I did a lot of presentations then. And they said, can you do a presentation on how you lead and how you think about that? And so guiding principles are what I came to. I started to learn about them. I started to do a lot of research around what are guiding principles and how is it that you find them, discover them, learn them, and then apply them. And so I'm going to talk about mine right now. You cannot take the Microsoft out of me, even though I left a couple of years ago. I used Copilot to say, Copilot, what are guiding principles? This is what came up. And what I love about this statement is it's aligned with our values, purpose, and what truly matters. And no matter what job we have, no matter who we're friends with, no matter where we are in life, if we're doing a hobby, spending time with family, interviewing for a job, speaking to other people, you want to always have your values, purpose, and what truly matters show up. So I'm going to talk about mine. Hopefully it helps. This is an old slide, so I'll go with it. This is an old order of my slides, but I'll go with it. I'm going to talk about mine. Hopefully it resonates with you. If some of mine resonate with you, then jot that down. If some of mine trigger something else for you, jot that down. It does take time. It took me a little bit of time to find mine. I found mine 10 years ago. I have not presented this for a while. I pulled it back up. I hadn't looked at it since, I think, 2019. And we had a pandemic. My kids grew up. They're now out of college. I got a new job. I left Microsoft after 20 years, and they are still the same. They're still who I am in the world. And this kind of summarizes who I am. In a gentle way, you can shake the world. I am truly an introvert, and you would not know that with me standing here, but I'm truly an introvert, but I want to have an impact. And so this is kind of that all up, but I'm going to jump into it right now. All right, so the first one, I talked about being a trail runner. That is a fact. I'm a trail runner. The judgmental side of me is like, I'm not very fast. I've tried at it for a long time. There are people that are better than me. My trainer is an ultra runner, and so that means he runs 100 miles at a time for 36 hours, thousands of feet of elevation, but he is 15 years younger and 6 inches taller than me, and he was literally born to run. I was not born to run, but I love it. And so what I do is if I compared myself to him, I would feel like a failure. I would feel like, why am I doing this? It doesn't bring me joy. So instead, it's about me. I just ran a 25K. That was huge for me. I actually ran probably like 27K because I got lost. But it was huge for me. And it felt joyful, and it felt light. But it took a lot of hard work. It took me trying and doing more every single day than I thought I could do before. And so my first guiding principle is always give 110%. And that means that if you can do 10 push-ups one day, you can do 11 the next day. And that's what I used for my trail running. It's like, okay, I ran 5 miles today. I bet I can run 5.5 miles next week. And so it didn't come all at one time, but I was always putting in 110%. I learned this from my dad, which is, you'll hear me reference my dad a few times. He was truly kind of that foundation for me of who I am. And you'll find as you start to work through guiding principles, it comes from a place way back, typically. It comes from how you're raised and, what are the principles that you were taught when you were a kid? What were the things that you found important, or you saw your parents do that were important, or you saw role models do that you thought were important? So a lot of those things were from my dad. And so there's a story that stands out that was truly a turning point. I was probably 10, and my dad was very athletic, and we went skiing, and I was the youngest, and so I was behind everybody else. And so he said, okay, we're going to go down this run. And I swear it was called the Terminator, but it probably wasn't. It's probably just what I remember it being called. And had moguls, probably this high. And and he said, okay, let's go down it. I was in tears. Like, it was so hard for me. And it was lunchtime, and I was hungry, and I was like, let's just get down this. I'm 10 years old. And he's like, all right, we're going to do this. You've got this. And so we finally made it to at the end. And I was like, oh, thank goodness we get to go have lunch now. And he's like, all right, we're going to go do it again. And I was like, what? Why are we going to do this again? He said, because I want to prove to you that you can do more than you think you can. And so we jumped on the chairlift. He handed me a piece of beef jerky, and he said, let's go. And guess what? The second time was easier. And that literally has changed so many things and so many ways that I frame what I can do and what I can't do. And so giving 100% is definitely my most important one to start with. So this is also from him. Don't let him see you sweat, which as a kid I always thought was funny because he was a natural sweater, and so he'd walk down a street or he'd eat something hot and he was sweating. I'm like, you're sweating. Why are you saying don't sweat? It goes with, being able to be confident and being able to show up in a way, in a mindset you think, I can handle this. But the other thing that I love about this is it fits with what I was talking about, like in a quiet way you can shake the world. I am a natural introvert. And so my ideal state is being calm. And I'm a little bit quieter. And so it means I don't always speak up when other people are being loud and gregarious, and that's okay. I think diversity is great. I think it's good for people to be gregarious, and I think it's good for people to be calm. And when I was in events, this served me very well. Like I remember one time, I lived on the East Coast, worked for an association in DC, and so we were doing a political staffer event that we did in Hawaii. Which, okay, you're in Hawaii and it's January. What could go wrong? And coming from DC, going to Hawaii, you tend to lose bags a lot because it's just a lot of travel. And so I just knew this was something that always happened. And so we planned for it. We knew how to contact people at the airlines. We knew how to fix it. And so people would come up panicked and say, I have nothing to wear. I just got here. I traveled for 10 hours. I'm exhausted. And I would be calm and say, great, let's handle it. Tell me more information, and we'll take care of it. I got feedback from my boss that said, you need to look more panicked. I'm like, why am I going to look more panicked? He said, because you want to show them that you care. And I said, I don't need to be more panicked to show them I care. But it was a good prompt for me to be more of like, I get how you're feeling. I understand the stress. Let me help you. But it didn't mean that I needed to look panicked and worried. And so my natural demeanor when something is very hard is I get very, very calm. My husband likes to say you're getting in your meeting planner mode, which I think is a very nice compliment, actually. The next thing is, remember you cannot do everything yourself. And I think, again, events background, being a manager and a leader for such a long time, I want to hold the burden. I don't want others to take the burden. I want to also show up as like, I've got this. I know how to do this. You hired for me for a reason. And you really can't do everything. I think about my kids when they were in high school. They had 7 different subjects that they were expected to excel at. They were expected to be in sports and be very good at those sports. They were expected to volunteer, and then they come home and then, by the way, can you go take out the trash in your spare time? So that just is unreasonable. It's an unreasonable expectation that was put on them as high schoolers, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate. It's an unreasonable expectation to think that everyone can be good at everything. I am not good at accounting. I am good at more of a creative side of marketing. That is okay. I can hire people that are smarter than me in other areas. And so my next one is hire people that are smarter than you. Whether you're a manager or not, just surround yourself with people that know things you don't know. And let your ego go and say, I don't know. Can I learn from you? Can you take this? Will you take the lead? There is nothing wrong with that, because everyone here has a purpose and everyone has a reason, and it probably is more empowering to the people around you as well. Oh, sorry, my S is a little bit off. Celebrate success. See, oh, this is actually perfect. Celebrate successes and always say thank you. So I'm looking at this and I was like, dang it, my S is off. 95% of this slide is okay, 5% of it is not. And that is how I looked at so many things growing up. I was like, I Just finished some big project. It went great, but guess what? I screwed up some things. And my brain would go to those things. And I would circle and spin on those things. And so this is something I had to learn because a manager told me, you're now a leader of people. When you do that, that's all they focus on too. They don't feel good about what they've done. They feel like that they have failed because that's all you're talking about. That's all you're focused on. So you have to take a minute and say, wow, let's celebrate all the things that just went really well. And we did this, and we did this, and we did this, and it was awesome. It was perfect. And thank you for all the effort that you put into it. Because saying thank you means a lot. I had a manager for a long time. Loved him as a manager, but all he would do is write every once in a while a THX. That was like the biggest kudos I ever got from him. And so I would actually save it in a folder. I'm like, wow, he said THX to me. This is awesome. So it really does matter to people when you've put in a lot of effort to recognize that. There'll always be time to learn. This goes along very, very closely with the next one. So we think that a lot of times the number of hours that we've put into something, that's what matters. It's more the quality. I just got a new manager at work, and he said, if you need to have the team step back in priorities, or if things aren't, you can't handle everything as the way your team is built right now, it's okay. I will give you the room to make that team be in the place where it needs to be for us to get further. And so think about quality, not quantity. And so the next one is about we'll get to the next one. Can I have help moving it forward? Thank you. There we go. We just allowed for a little valley, little break. So allow for peaks and valleys. There is a point where you need to take a break and take a deep breath. You cannot go at 110% all the time. You cannot do that. You need to take a pause. There is, going back to trail running, what I learned from my trainer is that you do not run up hills. And that's kind of the fun thing about trail running versus road running. You get an excuse to walk. But running up hills is not going to help you. It is hard. It exerts a lot of energy, and your legs actually the strides aren't as long. Your strides are shorter because you're trying to run up it, and you're exhausted by the time you get to the top. And you still have more to run. So if you walk, your strides are longer, and you conserve energy. We lost the slide. We're good. Okay, I'll keep going. And you conserve your energy. And so you've got to have those rests. Your body, your brain, your emotions, everything needs to have those rests. And if you don't take them, you're not going to serve yourself well, and you're not going to serve your teams well. It also gives you a chance to learn. I did a leadership and coaching class a long time ago, and they made us do this terrifying thing on the ropes course. Who's ever done a ropes course? It's terrifying. I'm so scared of heights. But what they had us do is there was like 5 different stations. And so each station, they had us take a pause and say, look back at what you just did, appreciate it. Now look forward and say, what do you have to do next? And so that was the super cool thing, is that you actually got to take that that valley, have a rest, and then move forward. And this goes a lot with the one that I just talked about too, is celebrate the success. There were so many things that went wrong with that ropes course, but at least I learned that. So pursue the things you love, so people can't take their eyes off of you. I love this. I know that life is not always realistic. You're not going to be in your favorite job all the time. You're not going to be doing things that you think are the most energizing. Like some days you have to do accounting, and that's not super fun. But most of the time, you should love where you are, what you're doing, and the people you're around. It's about being grateful for that And people cannot take their eyes off of people that look joyful and that are in their flow. And I know you've seen those. People that are in their flow doing hobbies or with their family or in jobs. Like, wow, that looks like something that they're really super excited about. I actually have, it's about being your own favorite person. I actually have a coach that taught me this one time. She's like, take a piece of paper on one side, write all the things you're really good at. On the other side, write all the things that you love. And that's the magic, right? Things that you love, things that you're good at. The other piece are things that are needed. And so that can be the third wheel. It's like, if I love this, I'm good at this, and it's needed here, that's kind of nirvana that you've found. And so being your own favorite person means that you're doing the things that you're super confident about, that you love doing, and that you know are going to add value, both for yourself and for others around you. Becoming better is better than being. So Carol Dweck, she wrote a book called Growth Mindset. It was required reading at Microsoft with Satya as CEO. That's what he came in with, is that you never stop learning. And your brain is not built to be a fixed mindset. It's about a growth mindset. So things like, I'm bad at math, is not actually something that's true. It's just because you've chosen not to put your energy into something like math. But if you really wanted to be good at math, you could figure out how to be good at math. And that's is that we are never done learning. And so it's all about learning for my 7th guiding principle. And so I spend a lot of time during the day, obviously in meetings, but to take a break, I go and read an article. I read about something I don't know anything about. I try and piece things together. There's this book that I absolutely love. It's by a guy named Franz Johansson. It's kind of old, but it's called The Medici Effect. And it's about finding these intersections of things that maybe weren't naturally put together to innovate and create new ideas. There was a friend of mine. He was a trade show consultant. And he did this for years. And he was very good at it. And there's a story he told me that I will never forget. He talked about, the large trade shows that are out there have a cliff. You'll see some of them be massive and wildly successful and suddenly just disappear. Like, think about Comdex. Think about, things like that that just didn't survive because they didn't innovate. And so he was saying that one of his clients was the American Hardware Show. Sounds kind of straightforward. It's hardware. Not super exciting, but it was starting to hit that cliff. And they said, we don't want this to die. How can we re-energize this? And this was at the time that American Girl was starting to be popular. They had like no other stores that were created before. They're immersive, where you go in, you have a doll that looks like you or that you've chosen and that you're wearing the same clothes and you have tea or you take them to the hospital and you do all these things. This is the kind of thing that makes me glad I have boys, but these are the things that, they created this experience, this immersive experience. And so he took the American Girl, or American Doll, and he took the American Hardware Show and said, how do I put these two together? And he completely redid the American Hardware Show. And it flourished in this changes. And so look for those intersections and always be learning, always think, don't think this isn't in my area of expertise. Think this is something maybe I can take an idea from. Those are the really fun moments. So feedback. So some guiding principles were learned when I was very young. Some are learned as you get older, because you know that whatever pattern you have is not serving you well. My style of leadership is servant leadership. I want to support, lead from behind, help people be happy, be successful. What I was realizing is that I wasn't giving direct enough feedback, and that I was not actually serving those people that I was responsible for, because I wouldn't tell them directly and at the time what it was that they needed to change. And so it is actually, I love Brené Brown's comment, is that clear is kind, unclear is unkind. Because if someone doesn't know that they've done something wrong, that they could do something differently, they could do it better, they're not going to learn from it. My kids played sports growing up, and we have shelves of trophies that they got for pretty much just showing up. They didn't they didn't win, they just got trophies because they were participating. And so it was basically like, here, good job. I remember my older son, he was like 12, and he was in Little League, and they got third, and they were handing everyone out trophies. He literally would not get up and get his trophy. And like, all the team is waiting, everyone's picking up their trophies. He's like, no. And I'm like, and get your trophy. And he's like, no. He goes, we didn't win anything. And he said this really loudly. I was like, oh, God, he's not my son. But he actually had a really great point. He's like, why am I going to be rewarded for something that actually we didn't do a good job? We did an okay job. We didn't do a good job. And so telling someone a good job right after they finish a presentation, after they've talked, after they've done some project, isn't actually going to help them. If they did do a good job, tell them why. Say, hey, when you presented these research findings, that was really helpful and it helped move the business forward in these ways. Or if they didn't do as well as they should have, it's like, I appreciate all the work you did, but these are the things that you can do differently. And so being very specific, it has been a learned trait for me, and I've realized that it builds stronger relationships with the people that I work with and that I connect with. So this is a quote and a guiding principle. So on stage, I'm doing something, a check, I've done something that scares me today. But I think it is the sense of what I've realized about this is the sense of adventure. It's the sense of what is possible, kind of connecting all the other guiding principles that I've talked about, like what is possible that I didn't think was possible? What can I see out in the world that I haven't seen before? Who can I meet that I haven't talked to yet? And so going out of your comfort zone opens up so many possibilities. 20 years at Microsoft, I could have stayed. It's a great company. I love it. I built some really strong relationships. I had some interesting roles. But I knew there was something different out there for me that I have not experienced. And so I made the decision to step out of my comfort zone. I'm instilling this hopefully in my kids. My son, older son, went to the University of Washington, go Dogs, and he lives in Seattle, he works in Seattle, and he's thinking of moving to New York. And I'm like, go, I will miss you every day, but go, because that's such a cool thing to do. And it will just open up his mind to so many more things. So, getting to our last one were some of the choices we made. So I've talked about things that I've learned when I was little from my dad. I've talked about things I've learned as I was working. And so those things make up who we are. And are a tapestry of our life. We're a tapestry of the families that we are in, the kids that we've raised, the teams that we've managed or been part of, the friends that we've connected with, the mentors, the experiences, the adventures. All of these things make up who we are, but they all ladder up to who we are in the world and how we valued. And so this, to me, is the most important. And so I leave it for last, is do not compromise on your beliefs. That is the one thing that you can hold and control, is that you have your beliefs. And so by holding on to your beliefs, all the other guiding principles fall into place. Someone used the term the other day that they left a job because they were in violation of their values. And that is such a good term. Don't ever be in a place where you're in a violation of your values. You are worth so much more than that. So with that, we have a few minutes left. Again, so these are my guiding principles. This is so much clearer. I think that if I show up and say, here's who I am, these are simpler than those other slides that I showed. So hopefully this has helped you with guiding principles. To end it, I'm going to bring up my friend Sharon. She's awesome. Her and I have known each other for a long time. We come in and out of each other's lives, but she is joyful. She makes people be better. She helps people around her. So we're going to chat. I think we just have a few more minutes. So thank you, Sharon, very much.
Thank you, Katie. Wow. I find Katie so inspiring, and part of that is her authenticity, her approachability, and her guiding principles. So I have so many questions for you, but let's start out with, you talked about hire people who are smarter than you or better than you. How do you, so a lot of people in our industry might be looking for upward mobility. What advice do you have, or what do you look for when you're thinking about hiring somebody, your top 3 or 4 things?
Yeah, that's a great question. So curiosity, that's kind of to my point of, are you always learning? And are you always getting, moving outside of your comfort zone? So I find out if they're curious about things. Going to authenticity, I ask them, tell me a time that you failed. And that's a hard question, because if someone answers it kind of fluffy of like, well, I was the second smartest person in my class, I wasn't the smartest person in my class, so it's like, oh, that's not really a good answer. But I was saying, I literally failed at a project at Microsoft, and that I've given that answer and gotten the job before. I think those two questions kind of give you a lot of sense of who the person actually is.
Okay, so curiosity meaning somebody who asks you questions through the process and has done their research.
Yeah. And then also ask them, when did you get out of your comfort zone? What's something that you did that really scared you but you feel really good about?
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, learning only happens outside of your comfort zone, as they say.
Yes, exactly.
So the other thing, one of the other guiding principles you mentioned was don't let them see you sweat. So you said that you remain calm through most situations. So what's happening on the inside? When you say don't let them see you sweat, can you share a situation about like what's really going on?
Yeah. There's a very loud voice in my head that is like yelling at me, and probably the whole duck thing under the water. So yeah, there's a lot of voices in there. And so what I have learned, and this goes to my learned behavior, is this like, okay, what is actually happening here? First of all, is anyone in danger? I have been in situations where people have been in danger, and that's a whole different situation. But most of the time, no one's in actual physical danger. And you're like, and so what is the worst thing that could happen? And this is in all of my head. I'm like, what is the worst thing that happened? I'm like, okay, that's not so bad. And then you're like, okay, what is it that I can do right now to move forward in this situation, to fix it, to change it? What's the first step? Because you can't think all the way down the line. It's so easy to do, but you're like, okay, what do I do first? And so you just kind of move into action. And then once you start to move into action, the voice in your head kind of gets a little bit quieter, because you're moving and you're doing and you're thinking versus feeling, which is that panic that's probably going on.
Yes. So I don't think that's as easy for everyone to do, because we have those feelings that kind of take over sometimes.
Yeah.
So, but to your point, putting it in perspective. I remember saying to people many times, we're putting heads in beds. We're not saving lives here. So, if we mess up something, nobody's gonna die.
Right, exactly.
So, okay, so for this audience who might be interested in advice about mentorship or that sort of thing, has there been, you mentioned many managers that you've had and different things that they've asked you to do or help you grow. Who has been your biggest mentor, and if there's any advice that you have for someone in the audience about how to find that mentor that really will help you go to the next level?
I've had some amazing mentors, and some of them were situational. They were just a point in time. We had something in common. They had done something that I was trying to figure out how to do, and so they mentored me situationally. But there are a few people that have been in my life for a long time. So my manager that I had, she ran the partner channel at Microsoft. She is absolutely my favorite mentor of all times, and she is retired but still very active in fighting for women equality and in tech in particular. And so I admire what she stands for. But her ability to help me is unique to me, because she puts it on me. She doesn't say, here's what I think you should do. She asks me the right questions, and she pushes me to think outside of where I was actually thinking and how I was getting stuck. And so she just has this ability she knows the answer, I think, and she knows that I know the answer. She just helps me get there on my own, and it's really helpful. We go for walks, and I love going for a walk, and so it's a great way to get out and just have this relationship with her. And I trust that she has my best interest, and she has so much experience. It's really helpful.
Okay, good. So as far as advice in looking for a mentor, someone who helps you discover your own strengths, someone who can ask you the right questions and help you be stronger as a person?
Right, exactly. As opposed to telling you how they think that you should do it.
Right.
Yeah.
That could be much easier.
Yeah. Yes, it is much faster.
It takes less time.
Less energy, yeah.
Okay, so in terms of other questions, so a lot of women in the audience, and we have faced obstacles in our growth, right? Sometimes due to personal choices, creating that balance that we need. What's the biggest obstacle that you faced simply as a woman, and either in your events part of your career, the first 20 years, or as you've evolved into marketing?
I think two. One is that I'm fortunate in a marriage that's a partnership that we balance, like whose career came first, depending on the time and that sort of thing. But I do see that as a huge obstacle. I'm glad that the pandemic has allowed people to work from home, because childcare is hard, and juggling all those things. And so I think there were times that I paused the momentum of my career because my kids obviously came first, and I don't know that affects men as much. It depends on the relationship. I think one of the biggest things that I see is our voice. Our voice is sometimes looked over, and we're not heard as much. What I have done with colleagues of mine that were women is that if we're in a meeting together, it's reinforcing each other's voice. Like, hey, Sharon, you had a really great idea, and building on that person's idea, because I have seen it in a place where maybe you said something and 5 minutes later a man said it, and everyone's like, yeah, great idea. And so reinforcing and having that peer mentorship in a room is really helpful.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so supporting and helping
each other,
others along in the process makes total sense.
Yeah, there's room for all of us to be successful.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to check my notes here. How did so you spent the first 20 years of your career in events. How did you decide, and what did you do to make that transition from events into marketing?
Yeah, it was a big decision. It was another one of those turns that was really hard for me to do, and going out of my comfort zone, because I could have stayed in events the rest of my career and loved it. It's a great industry. My manager was retiring, and he said, hey, what do you want to do? And so he helped me think through it. The thing that I did is when I moved to the partner channel at Microsoft, where I was still running a big event. And so I knew that there was a third of that job that I knew that I could do really, really well, and that I had experience in. It could be a big win, and the other things I needed to learn. And that's actually the advice I give to people when they're looking at new roles. It's like, don't take a role that you know 100% of it. Like, you're not going to learn, you're not going to grow. How is that going to help? Go where you only know part of it, and there's another part that you know that you can learn that. And so once I did that big step, I was like, oh, this isn't as scary as I thought it was, and then I could continue to do it, because then I moved into product marketing, which I hadn't done before either. But it was a much easier transition, because I knew what to do and how to adjust.
So really kind of taking that leap, and you went outside your comfort zone multiple times, right? Kind of entering that new place.
Associations, and then to Microsoft, and then out of events,
So since you've had a number of different roles throughout your career, what other advice would you give as someone is moving into a new role? Like, how can you ensure success early on?
I think it goes to curiosity, and someone actually gave me great advice when I was leaving Microsoft and going to Smartsheet. They said, meet with as many people as you possibly can. I literally met, I think, with like 50 to 70 people in the first month. I just met with as many people as possible, because she's like, what you'll do when you meet with that many people, no matter what their role, you'll start to see trends in things that need to be addressed, that you can uniquely solve for. And I did. I saw like 3 things, and those are the 3 things that I spent my first year at Smartsheet doing and changing and helping the company that didn't exist before. And it wasn't just me thinking, oh, this needs to be done. It was like from a large number of people telling me kind of the same thing over and over again. And so I think it's just going out and asking those questions.
Right, so it kind of goes, it seems like there's a theme here. Curiosity and questions.
Yes,
Get you much further
questions
than telling and jumping in and doing right away.
100%.
Okay, so I think we have a couple of minutes left, and what I'd like to do is open it up to the audience if they have any questions for Kati. There's a microphone right up here, right up front.
And well, if someone's coming to ask, I'd love to know, do you have guiding principles? Are there any that come to mind for you?
I don't have organized guiding principles as you do, but one of my main philosophies is just be nice.
I love that.
And, if you can be nice to people and give them grace, and especially as a leader, a lot of times when people get promoted, they think, oh, I've got power now. Or they, you let ego and some of those other things get in the way. So that's kind of my guiding principle is figure out how to be kind and nice to all different types of people and look to be curious about what they have to bring and leave judgment aside.
I love that. That's such a good one. That rules above all, honestly. That matters.
I think we have a question.
Good. Hi.
Can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yes. Pardon me. Thank you so much for speaking today. It's been incredible. I work with women leaders just like you on their wellness strategy and how to role model true well-being as a leader who's busy and stressed and all of those things. What other things other than trail running can you share with the group on how you stay balanced from a wellness perspective?
Definitely, yeah, no, it's great. The physical side of it, I do work out every morning, and to me, being an introvert and having that time by myself early in the morning really grounds me and wakes me up. From the other end of it, like, I absolutely adore my family. Like, that is the most important thing to me. And, I have 2 boys, very different. They're now going out in the world. So that to me is like knowing that they are the most important thing to me does make everything else kind of feel less important, right? And less weighty. It's like if I can make sure that they're good in the world, I've done something important. There's that. And then, I love to read. I love Netflix. There's just things that sometimes you just have to turn off. You don't always have to be on all the time, right? And so just kind of zoning out. I watched The Bachelor. It was fun. It was great. Those kind of things. Like sometimes you just need to find balance in ways like that. It's a great question. Thank you.
Love that. Another question. Oh,
no.
Sorry. Were you
Go
here
ahead.
first? I
Yeah,
didn't see
sorry.
you.
I didn't either. The light over here, yeah.
That's okay. So one of my mentors told me to stop apologizing, and it has been huge in my career. Is there any other advice or things that you'd tell us not to do, or any other things like that you could share?
That is such good advice, and it's so easy, especially women. It's so easy to say, "Oh, I'm sorry," as just a start to a sentence, and you don't even realize it. I think the other thing is set boundaries. Is like don't say yes to everything. I had a very good. I thought saying yes meant I was taking one for the team, I was, being a strong performer. But when you say yes to something that you cannot deliver on, you're then letting them down even more. And so it's either a no, I can't, or it's a no, I can't right now, but I can do this. It's like countering with it. And so it's just not saying yes to everything and having boundaries.
That makes sense.
Thank you for sharing. I have a question about, in terms of confidence, you being a woman and a leader, often in male-dominant spaces, what are some ways that you kind of remain solid in your ground in your position as a leader?
That's a great question. Yeah, I'm around a lot of men most of the day, being in technology, and again, being an introvert too, my voice is a little bit quieter at times. What I have done is I've learned that I over-prepare for some things. Like I show up for a meeting, when we are in person, you physically make sure that you have a seat at the table, that you are not sitting in the back. A lot of times women take their bags and stick them under their, under their legs so they don't take up too much room. So take up your space because men do as much. But if you go in there and you know your stuff, you know your information and you're prepared, they can't help but listen to you, and they know that you're bringing value. And always speak up too. Don't stay quiet. I had a mentor that helped me, use my introvert for good, and she's like, if you're in a meeting where you feel like you're, you might not add value, always speak up. Whether it's that you're speaking up with something that you know, or ask a question if you don't know, just so they show that you are engaged and that you're in the room. So I think it's that presence of being bigger than what you think that you are. It's a great question.
Great, thank you. Good questions. We can take one more question.
Yeah.
Hi, sorry, I'm pretty sure. Going back to your point of mentorship, some of us have had the luck of finding mentors throughout our careers very organically, but I've found in my past years that I've really been in a need of a mentor and not really know how to find one, and not one has arrived organically. What would you suggest for some of us that are really in a position where we really need guidance, especially as women?
Yeah, it's that's a great question. is something that you can actually do with mentors that you have right now, or even peers of yours. Say, who are 3 people that you think I should talk to? And you can approach those people with like, hey, can I have a half an hour of your time? I just want to find out what you do, understand your career path, where you've gotten to where you are, just a half an hour. So you're starting with a very small commitment. And most people I have found will give a half an hour. And it may take a little while to get the times together, but in that half an hour, you can assess and say, hey, this person seems really interesting, and one that I'd like to have as a mentor. So then you've made that connection and say, hey, would you be interested in mentoring me? And if they say no, you're like, okay, do you have 3 people that you can recommend that I can talk to? And so it's like this, it's like a forced organic network, right? But it's starting out small. It's not always, can you be my mentor, when you don't know them well enough, but when you start to make that connection, I find that grows into a mentorship, even if it's a less formal one. And then they introduce you to people maybe you didn't know either as well, and because their network is different than yours. Okay, thanks.
Great. Thank you, Katie. Thank you for the great questions. If you have further questions for Katie, she'll be over in the speaker area. There's 4 gray chairs over there and a table. So if you'd like to ask Katie some additional questions, you're welcome to do so over there. So thank you again for sharing your insights.
Thank you, everyone, very much. This is great. Yeah.